Welcome to Surf Studio. Surf Lifesaving is filled with so many fantastic people and inspiring stories, and Surf Studio is designed to share some of these stories from across the country and across all areas of lifesaving. In today's show, we talk to the legendary Ironman Trevor Hendy and find out a little bit more about his early life and entry into surf lifesaving. We then go to North Queensland and check in with Zara Chauvin-Hartmann from Cairns Surf Lifesaving Club as they prepare to begin their patrol season. We go to Western Australia and talk to Doctor Leesa Equid from Swanbourne, Nedlands Surf Lifesaving Club about their response to COVID-19. Then finally we head to Umina on the central coast of New South Wales, where we check in with surf lifesaving star Jemma Smith and her mum Kerry on the eve of Mother's Day.
Welcome to Surf Studio. Ironman legend, 4 times world Ironman champion and 6 times Australian Ironman champion, and many would describe as one of the world's nicest guys, Trevor Hendy.
Thanks. That's a really cool intro, Grant. One of the world's nicest guys. Pretty cool. Thanks, mate.
Old Trev, can we start off by you telling us about the early days, you growing up and where you were born, and let's go from there.
Yeah, sure. There's an interesting little story for me right from the start, and I think it's where our parents sometimes, or the major leaders around you, set your I suppose that those inner ideals, those values and things that you live by. And the story about my dad, at 1971, he had a great job as a carpenter, as a foreman on a great site, house, the picket fence, the beautiful wife and the kids, and 2 kids, my 5-year older sister and myself. And he noted that everybody was traveling around the world for their holidays, and he thought that was a bit strange because he wanted to see his own country first. But secondly, he felt like he'd had everything he was supposed to have to be happy, and felt like something was missing, something wasn't quite right. And he said to my mum, came home and said, look, something's not quite right. I want to look around the country and maybe we might live or settle somewhere else. So we left Melbourne, packed everything in a storage shed, left Melbourne in a single blue Dodge truck and towed a caravan around Australia for 2 years. We went up the Queensland coast, went up through New South Wales, and eventually across the coast, across Northern Territory, Western Australia, down. Over 2 years, we went through that whole journey. Intrinsically, what I got out of that was just because you're doing everything that you think you should be doing doesn't necessarily mean it's what is ultimately your destiny. There might be more to your life than just living the norm or living the picket fence story. So that's pretty cool that my dad had that in him, and follow your dreams, follow your passions. But he used to pull up on the side of the road in different spots, between towns, and we might be going to sleep in the caravan off to the side. He'd pull out a dirt track and Mum would get out and start cooking dinner, and my sister and I would go for a walk with Dad, and he'd walk us for half an hour off into the bush, change directions all the time and have a bit of an adventure. And then all of a sudden he'd say, okay, point which way's back to the caravan. And, the first time that happened, I'm pretty sure I was like, I wouldn't have a clue. I was too busy watching the trees, and I cottoned onto it pretty quickly that always remember where home is. It developed in me this ability to go on adventures and go off the beaten path, but know where home is. And later on, that augured pretty well for me, because as we'll sort of tell when we get into this story, I went through some pretty dramatic things in my life and I lost my way. But I was able to find my way back and work out, who am I really? Where is home? Where's the home cooked meal? Where should I be to be content and peaceful? But
you've been widely known as probably one of the best there ever was at finding your way in and out of the surf. Do you think that finding your way back home in the bush each time you went out there, do you think that in some way helped you create this amazing ability to be able to read the surf?
I think there's a few levels. Intuitively, for sure. I think I always had this thing when I was running around the Cairns or running around the flags in an Ironman race. I used to have the song going through my head. You got to find your own way, or go your own way. Fleetwood Mac, I think. You got to go your own way. And so I knew I always had to go my own way. And my father certainly encouraged that in me. And I think that grew because it was already intrinsic to me, side of myself. I had that intuition, and I had that desire to turn left and to turn right, to try a bit of everything, to go all different places and work out which way ultimately worked for me. And I think how it relates in the end was I was probably one of the first people to really go, well, the rip's 100 metres over there, but I know that that's the fastest way out. I'm going all the way over there, and everyone else would go, it's too far away, and they'd try and go across the bank, and I'd run down, find the rip, and then sometimes get out 100 metres in front because I was brave enough to go away from off the beaten track and away from the norm. And if you think back to that story, that's what my dad did. He was on the sandbank living in Melbourne, you know, with his family and his ideal little nuclear setup. And he decided to go way over to the left and take the rip out, and ultimately took us to the Gold Coast, where we've lived the most incredible life because of my father's courage to break out of the norm.
Obviously, there's many people at the moment, unfortunately, going through some difficult times themselves as they struggle through this once in 100-year pandemic. How can you convey some of those challenging times that you went to, that some of the techniques you use that could support others right now?
I tell a story, and I'll try and make it really quick, but I remember drying off after the warm-up the first time, and my mum tells this story too. They call out the order. The order is board, swim, ski. And as lifesaving, we know this, that the order is always called out at the start of the carnival. I'm drying off, mum's folding the chair out, and dad's digging the umbrella, and everyone else is under the tent, mulling around, doing different things, getting ready. And my mum turns to me and says, Trev, what's that order like for you? You know, and I'm pretty close to her, and I say, what was it, Mum? Being a bit of a smart aleck, you know, that I already heard it, but asking her anyway. And she says, it's board, swim, ski. And I go, oh, board first, Mum, swim in the middle, ski last. Oh, ski coming home. That's my perfect order, Mum. And my mum turned to my dad and goes, did you hear that, Ron? It's his perfect order. And then she turns to me and she says, Trev, what are these conditions like for you? And I look out and I go, Mum, it's ex-cyclone. Like, it's massive waves. You're going to have to dive really deep, hold your breath. It's going to be all about skills, keeping everything straight, picking the right wave, making your moves, being patient, rhythm and flow. You know, Mum, these are my perfect conditions. And my mum turns to my dad and says, did you hear that, Ron? It's his perfect order and his perfect conditions. Anyway, fast forwarding to the end of the race that day, and I won by like half a leg, nearly a leg, like a long way. I got way away in front of everybody. First race I'd ever won. So, okay, little skinny Trev's had a fluke. He's won it in huge waves. And fast forward to the state titles, I'm drying off. Mum's folding the chair. Dad's digging the umbrella in, and they call out the order. And the order is board, ski, swim. And I'm pretty sure it was that. I sometimes get a bit mixed up after all those years. Board, ski, swim. And my mum turns to me and says, so Trev, what's that order like for you? And I'm like, what was it, Mum? She goes, board, ski, swim. And I go, board first. Firstly, ski and swim coming home. That's my perfect order, Mum. And she goes, hang on a minute. And she looks out, and it's like 3 foot waves, a little crumbly offshore wind. She goes, and these are your perfect conditions, aren't they? And I went, you got it, Mum. And she turns to my dad and she says, did you hear that, Ron? It's always his perfect order and it's always his perfect conditions. And my dad says, oh, Bev, how long did it take you to work that out? Yeah. So that's a long story, but the moral of the story, you know, it really hit home is the conditions are always perfect if you've decided to get the most out of it. So my goal wasn't to win the race, it was to perfect the race. So every time I raced, I didn't judge the race by whether I won it. I judged the race by how I executed the race. And that's another thing that built go. And so I always looked at the race as an opportunity to learn, not as a result in itself. Like, it was always a step along the way, because I wasn't there to win the Ironman race. I was there to perfect it. That was the process. So because of that, every conditions and every order was perfect. Because, well, what's that going to show me today? What's it going to teach me? It's always perfect, because I'm going to be ready to go at any stage so I can perfect the race. The story being, the moral of the story is obviously, you know, right now, the order and the conditions are all over the place. People's money's upside down, their health in some instances, very uncertain. Some other people are reporting that they've never been so happy. They've had a break finally, that they didn't realize that they were run into the ground, that their adrenaline, you know, running on adrenaline. They've slowed down, they've fixed it, they've oiled their bike and fixed their surfboard and re-waxed it and got their cameras back out and been back out with their kids. And so there's a massive silver lining and something to learn in every single situation. And this situation is no different, super challenging and drastic for some people, and we don't undervalue what's going on for those people. But as soon as we can actually embrace it and go, well, it might be crap. Like, there are days when the waves were so big that I was like, well, there's no guarantees and no promises that I'll even get out today. And I was always the one that would often get out more or quickly or better than someone else, because I'd go, okay, wasn't that fantastic? Because it takes all the pressure off anyway, you know, so just go and let go. So there's a lot of things we can't control right now, but what we can control is whether we're accepting things to be the way they are rather than fighting with them, and whether if we can accept it, have acceptance and accept it that way. And finally, if we can accept it, embrace it, we might be able to create something cool while this is going on. That's my advice.
Take on any weather. Dulux Weather Shield with MaxiFlex technology. If it's worth doing, it's worth Dulux.
And today on Surf Studio, so excited to welcome Zara all the way from Cairns. Zara, what's it like up in Cairns today?
So today is actually a very beautiful day. Sun's out, the waves aren't too big, so it's nice and clear at the beach. I did go for a swim this morning and it's pretty cold actually for us.
Zara, the surf season starts so much earlier up in far North Queensland.
Yeah, so we are actually just coming into the start of our season. We start generally around April till November each year, completely the opposite to big clubs down south.
So tell me why. What's the reason for starting your patrol season so early?
So the reason we start our patrol season so early is because of our marine stingers. And that's also the reason that our season is different to the guys down south. From November to April, May, it kind of depends. Our beaches are flooded with stingers. And so it's good to have both lifeguards and lifesavers on. And so we've all got the same kind of experience up here in North Queensland.
Now, far North Queensland has some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. It must be so busy for our lifesavers up there sometimes.
Yeah, especially when you mix the good weather and the perfect stinger conditions are actually, they look so great to swim in, but they can be really dangerous, which makes it really tough for our lifesavers.
It's not just stingers though, is it? You get a lot of unexpected visitors up your way.
Yeah, we've got our fair share of marine stingers, but there's also crocs, sea snakes, stingrays, a few shovel-nosed sharks, and you just, honestly, every day is different. You never know who's going to come and visit when you're on a patrol.
Zara, what's so special about being a lifesaver in far North Queensland?
I think that in far North Queensland, we are exposed to different conditions to down south. They have all the wave currents, rip currents, and those kinds of things, sharks. However, there is so much exciting knowledge to learn about our marine stingers, and that's what makes us so different from the other clubs.
Now, Cairns is only a really small club, but your members are incredibly committed to keeping the beaches safe.
Some of our members actually complete 50 to 100 hours every season. So in the 2019 surf season for Cairns, we had over 3,800 hours. And for such a small club, I think that is a really great achievement to be proud of.
Now, surf conditions are really different between Cairns and the Gold Coast, but when it comes to the surf sports competitions, our competitors from far North Queensland really punch above their weight.
Oh, absolutely. Our surf up here is not big at all, as you can see with my backdrop. That's probably the average swell that we do get up here in Cairns. However, I think that we lifesavers in North Queensland and Cairns, we are also hardworking and determined. I know that I used to go to the Junior State Surf Sport Championships from under 11s to under 15, and we would actually train in a lake at a cable ski park before coming down south. So we train in a lake in our off season, and we come down south and we look at the 6 to 8 foot swell and go, right, let's give this a crack. You know, we're just going to get out there, and we're really persistent. And yeah.
Cairns recently held their annual sign-on day, which I understand is actually one of the biggest in recent years. But I have to ask, who's Sandy the surf dog?
So Sandy the surf dog is our Cairns mascot that we use at the sign-on day. So the Cairns biggest sign-on day is where a lot of local clubs come together and they put on displays. So you've got bowling clubs, triathlon clubs, and we've always got an amazing surf lifesaving display where the red and yellow of the lifesavers just sticks out like a sore thumb. It's great. So many people can come and visit and ask heaps of questions. And then there's a big mascot dance, and Sandy the surf dog is up there dancing for us, representing lifesaving in North Queensland, and it's the best. I think I want to be Sandy next year for sure.
Now, Zara, Cairns had an amazing submission for the DHL We Are One campaign. You must be really proud to be a part of that.
I saw the DHL advertisement, on the SLSA Instagram page. And I just thought, wow, what a great opportunity for our club to be recognised for some of the amazing things that we do for our community. I really think that our lifesavers are always out there helping people, saving lives, sharing information. And we're always called to do water safety or volunteering at the USM Ironman. And because our club is the largest in North Queensland, we do have the manpower to help, which is such a great thing because it is so good for you. It's such a rewarding experience, but it also helps out those local clubs and those big events that do come to Cairns as well.
These guys want to tow into a wave with a helicopter. It's insane.
One of the toughest things I've ever done.
Oh, that's fun.
The speed was just outrageous.
Copped a couple of huge beatings.
This is the one.
Here on Surf Studio, I'm here with Doctor Leesa Equid from Swanee Surf Club, WA. Leesa, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, no worries.
Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and also a little bit about your medical background?
I've finished my emergency training as of yesterday. Yay. Just waiting.
Congratulations. Fantastic.
Thank you. Just waiting for the last bits of paper to come through. So I've been doing that for quite a while and joined Swanee while I was a med student. And so I've been building up through both Swanee and as an emergency doctor. And I'm currently working for RFDS here in WA at the moment.
Now, looking at SurfGuard, there appears to be a really strong connection between people with a medical background and Swanee Surf Club. I think around 20% of the members have some sort of health or medical jobs. What's that all about?
Yeah, that's correct. Word of mouth, really. We're all looking for extracurricular things to do. One of my good friends got me into it, and then I convinced a few other friends, and it sort of just spread word of mouth from there. So yeah, about 20% would be accurate. There's at least one doctor or nurse on every single patrol thereabouts.
So coming back to the present day, I suppose, with COVID-19, you were part of a committee that formed through Swanee Surf Club and really took the initiative on to form the COVID-19 committee. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so look, our management committee are very open to any sort of advice, and they saw that there was a bit of a need to get an up-to-date medical understanding of what was going on and what recommendations we could put to the members. So they approached myself, another doctor, James Anderson, who's an anaesthetist at Fiona Stanley and also works with me at RFDS, and Jen White, who is a nurse who was also part of the OSMAP team, who went up to Christmas Island with the first cohort of COVID patients. And she's also been over in Tassie at the moment. And what they asked us to do was put together all our knowledge that we already had and a bit more research behind the medical side of things, and asked us to create an action plan for the club that was continually updated to allow members to have an understanding of what processes we were putting in place.
And it fascinates me, this organisation of ours always fascinates me with the length and the breadth of knowledge we have in it. You've just described there an anaesthetist, you're an emergency doctor with the Royal Flying Doctor Service, and there was a nurse that was with the first cohort of COVID-19 patients on Christmas Island. So yeah, a few good skills there.
Yeah. So what we ended up doing was creating this document and some advice with regards to shutting down hires of the club, cancelling organised training, closing of the gym. And we actually put restrictions in for overseas travel prior to the national recommendations. So I think we were 3 days ahead of that, and then enacted some interstate travel bans as well. also around the time or just prior to the national regulations were put in. And then we've just done continual updates on that. So as things are being lifted here in WA, we're then portraying that through that document as well.
I understand at the time, because everything was moving so quickly, that you did crop a bit of flack from the members, but 3 or 4 days later, the nation followed your initiative.
Yeah, so we'd backdated it to that Friday because we thought that was really important. Obviously not knowing which members it had impacted on, but it did impact on a couple of them. And I can understand that Swanee is sort of our outlet for any frustration or wanting exercise and socialisation, but I think it was important that we implemented that policy for all of our members just to ensure everyone was kept safe, especially with what we've seen now overseas.
With the Easter long weekend, the nation was in the thick of COVID-19 at that particular time. Tell us a little bit about what Swanee did on the Easter long weekend, which was a little bit different to what some of the other clubs up and down the West Coast were doing.
Yeah, so in WA, beaches didn't have a restriction, unlike New South Wales. So we're a bit lucky that it was a sort of unregulated area. But there'd obviously been a lot of people down at Cottesloe, and police were enforced to make sure everyone was socially isolating. A lot of the clubs had already finished their patrols for the season. So the Easter long weekend, I think it was just us and Mandurah Surf Club that were still having active patrols, and we continued on for another weekend. But what we did was we only had 2 people on patrol, despite it ending up being our 3rd busiest day of the season. And we just ensured that it was 2 senior members of the patrol, maximum 2 hours patrolling. So we had turnover of patrols in the middle, and ensuring we had backup people that were available on call if they were needed to fill in. 250
people, how does that compare to the average number of people you'd have on the beach?
Yeah, so I think our peak was 272, and we had a total of 835 people on that day.
Wow.
So I think our record was back in November, and it was a day with the nippers, where we had a few more people than that, and Australia Day as well, because that's always busy. But we had a really good relationship with the local ranger. The police were down ensuring that the people were still isolating from each other in terms of groups. And SLS WA provided a document as well to all of the patrol captains to ensure that we were complying with the isolation rules, but also reminding us that we weren't there to enforce the isolation rules ourselves. That was the role of the rangers and the police. We were there to ensure people were safe in the water.
You can feel the passion in your voice. It's outstanding.
Yeah.
Turning to your professional career, you've just finished your training as an emergency doctor, working with the Royal Flying Doctors Service. Tell us a little bit how your medical training assists your volunteer career with surf lifesaving, and vice versa, how lifesaving supports your professional.
Yeah, they're both very much intertwined, because a lot of what I do at the surf club is education based, and that's part of my favourite role as an emergency doctor, as well as teaching my junior staff members. I've learnt a lot of teaching and assessment techniques through surf lifesaving when I got my Cert 4, and being a trainer, assessor and facilitator as well. So I've taken that into the workplace, and it's assisted me with all of that. And then I can take real life experiences from work and use them to create scenarios or to give real life examples of things to our members as well during training.
How do you find the time, but you're competing in Champion Lifesaver Patrol competition, you're a doctor with the Royal Flying Doctors Service, you're the Honorary Medical Officer of Surf Lifesaving WA, and you're a board member. I'm getting tired just saying it. How do you find the time?
Oh, if you enjoy something, there's always time to do it. I mean, being at Swanee and being on the board, it's a bit of a social outing. It's also enjoyable. Everyone's got some sort of passion that they do in their extracurricular time, and surf club's mine.
Leesa, thank you so much for joining us on Surf Studio. Thank you.
And on the first episode of Surf Studio, so excited to be joined by Jemma and Kerry Smith from Umina Surf Lifesaving Club. Now, Jemma, tell us, how did you first get involved in lifesaving?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate to get involved in lifesaving through Mum. So Mum had been involved in lifesaving pretty much for all her life. She'd been a sort of stalwart at Umina Surf Club, and my grandfather had been involved as well. So we sort of grew up hanging around down at the beach when we were little on patrol with Mum. So she sort of enrolled us into the nippers, and then from there our involvement just grew each year.
My dad was involved, and he had his very first patrol the first day I came. Mum brought me home from hospital as a baby. So he wasn't very popular on that particular day, but he just joined the surf club, and he'd been doing patrols. So I grew up down the surf club, and they used to take me down in the bassinet, down to the Sips on a Sunday evening. And I'd been down the beach and grew up. And my brother and my brother's still involved as well. So we grew up in the Umina Surf Club, and it was just the lifestyle that we knew. So every summer we were down the beach. And so it was natural. At that stage when I joined as a 5-year-old. There was only nipperettes then. It was before the amalgamation happened. So that gives a bit of an indication of how old I am. But back in those days, we had the nipperettes. So I was in the nipperettes. And then we, at the age of about 12, that's when we combined with the nippers. And yeah, we just followed on through and got our bronze and did patrols. And we've been doing that ever since. And I love it. And I'm really lucky that both the girls, when they came along, they really enjoyed it. My husband, I converted him as well, and he's now the bar manager, and he's often the guy towing the gear trailer and carrying a lot of the gear around. So yeah, it's a full family involvement, and Dad sometimes comes along and watches, and Jem often does some paddling with my brother and nephews as well. So it's a full family affair.
So we're actually on the same patrol, our whole family is. So Mum's the patrol captain, I'm the vice captain, and then my sister's also on patrol, and so is Dad. It's a big family affair, but we love going down and patrolling down at Umina. It's such a really great community club, and we really love being down there and doing our part.
A question for Jemma. We know you as an Iron Woman, but you're actually a very versatile athlete. Can you tell us a little bit more about your involvement in surf rescue competition?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up doing nippers at Umina and sort of worked my way through, and obviously have got really involved in the Ironman racing. But I've sort of, when I was in the under 14s, I got introduced to an event called Champion Lifesaver, which Mum had been doing for years before I'd sort of come along. She sort of started competing in that against the men way before I was born, and she actually took out the first Australian Open title in 2000 when I was just after I'd been born. So she'd been doing it for ages. So it was I'd sort of grown up seeing her compete in the event and sort of had a bit of an interest in it. And so when I was old enough, I got involved, and from there I really, really enjoyed it and sort of have been doing it ever since, I suppose. And it's a unique event in the fact that you've got to do your practical side of things. So you've still got to do a swim race, a board race, a tube, and a sprint. But you've also then got to do a theory paper and do resus skills. So it really tests out your all-round capabilities, and you've really got to be on top of everything, I suppose, to be able to, do really well in the event. And it really makes you a good lifesaver, I think.
Kerry, you joined the movement at the age of 5. You've been a patrol captain since you were 19. You must have seen some amazing changes in your time in lifesaving.
In competition, it's changed drastically. When I was back, when I was 19, I got picked in the first New South Wales women's team, and we went over to New Zealand. And at that stage, there was only beach sprint, surf race, board race, and what they used to call Diamond Lady events for the women. There was not even any flags. That was considered too dangerous for women. There wasn't any skis. We weren't considered strong enough to paddle skis, and there was no boat events or anything like that. And when we went over to New Zealand, we actually had to compete against the New Zealanders in those events. So we had to learn how to do them as part of that team. So that was the first time we'd ever raced them. And we came back, and it took, I think, about 7 years for those events for there to be an actual women's ski race at our state titles. So it took a long time, and I was often in the ski races against the men on the Central Coast to try, because that's how they were going to get, you know, women's races introduced. They had to show that there was an interest there and that we could actually physically do it. So I guess a lot of the female boat rowers, they had to probably go through the same process. And eventually, we've got women's everything. So it's fantastic that gradual process has come through, and women have developed the skills and have shown that, you know, well, we can to some degree. I'm not sure if we're quite to the equal standard of the men in those events, but we're giving it a red hot go, and it's really enjoyable. We enjoy it just as much as the men do. So that is the big change that's happened. And obviously too, back when women first amalgamated, there was hardly any women in our surf club. You know, I was one of very few women, so there wasn't many women on patrol. There wasn't very many women training. So it's been really good to see that so many have joined and are enjoying it, and are able to do patrols and get involved and be on their club executive and become life members and compete. And they're involved in every facet now, which is awesome.
The world has really changed in the last few months. What are you most looking forward to when things go back to normal?
I'm looking forward to a new season. Obviously, it'll be a new start after this whole lockdown situation. It's sort of changed the nature of my training daily environment, and I'm sure everybody out there is getting used to things that they didn't think would ever happen. So for me, I think the new season brings a new set of opportunities, a new season to show what we've been working on over the off season, or, you know, fine tuning the weaknesses and making sure, you know, we're ready to go. So I'm just looking forward to getting back out there and being able to race, see all my friends that you see down the beach every weekend, being able to do that, training a group again, all those sorts of things. So I'm just really looking forward to having a new set of opportunities to go out there and enjoy what we're doing best, being on the beach every weekend, and really relishing every moment.
But it's more so the connecting with people, not being able to go for a paddle with friends, and not being able to train as a group, and missing just going down and having a chat, a morning coffee at the surf club, and things like that, having your gear in the surf club and being able to have a shower and all those sorts of things after training. So it's all those, you know, access and just catching up with people that you meet by just hanging around down there, you know, and it's just that interaction, and as well as patrols and all that, you know, there's just not the same number of people and community. So it'll be really nice to get back into normality, hopefully, and make those connections.
Jemma, how has your mum inspired your time in lifesaving?
Mum has been a massive inspiration for me throughout my lifesaving journey. You know, before I was born, she'd been involved since she was in the under fives, and has done so many amazing things throughout her own journey in her own right, and gone on and achieved so many amazing things. And since involved in the nippers, she was my own age manager, so I was always looking up to her, and, you know, she's sort of taught me the ropes and laid the foundational skills for me to be able to be where I am today. So she's been a huge inspiration, and I'm just so thankful that I've had her to help me along the way.
Mother's Day is coming up really soon. Jemma, do you have anything special planned for Kerry this year?
You know, I think on Mother's Day she'll definitely be getting spoiled. I won't let too many cats out of the bag yet, but no, I'm sure we'll probably cook her up a big nice brekkie, and hopefully we'll be able to call past and say hi to the grandparents from afar. They live locally, so hopefully we'll be able to go and sort of spread the love their way as well. But we've been spending a lot more time together recently, which has been really nice. So hopefully, Mother's Day, it'll all be about her, that's for sure.
Thanks for watching Surf Studio. We would encourage you to get in touch with us to send through ideas or stories for future episodes. Contact the team via our social media channels or email us at surfstudio@slsa.asn.au.